Welcome back to Keep Off the Fence podcast, the number one Matlock Town podcast that is now available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So a plethora of options for you to listen to. Joining me today, we have two people. My co-host, a man who finished second in a recent Gareth Southgate lookalike competition. It's Matthew Rhodes. Matt, how are you, mate?
I am all right, yeah. Getting quite bored of this particular lockdown, but we're getting there. How are you?
Well, I appreciate you've changed the room you're in on Zoom, so instead of your front room, we're enjoying the cream tones of your bedroom, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, Isabel has the living room at the moment, so she's in a very gobby mood at the moment, so I need to be upstairs.
So I guess we should introduce today's special guest, the bespectacled special guest, for lack of a better term. By day, he is a mild mannered Manc, but when it comes to 3 p.m. on Saturday, he has been often described as the wild one. It's only Dave Wild.
Hi, pal.
How are you doing, mate?
I'm all right. I've been told to keep it PC, so...
PC, PG, just behave in general and we'll be all right.
Trying my best.
Oh.
Not that bad. I've got this horrendous sort of representation of myself of being a bit of a cannon head. I'm actually quite professional.
You're always professional, Dave. Don't worry.
Not my fault if you two panic when I'm around.
Oh, I tell you, whenever Gaffer says, "Oh, why don't you interview Wildy today?" My stomach drops out. Let me tell you. So,
just to pop in, the only time I was actually scared of you, Dave, was the first time I ever actually spoke to you properly. It was the game against Hyde where. Well, there might be children listening, but Matlock were dreadful. Were really, really bad. And you did well to only lose 3-1. And I was waiting for Philo. And then you came out and said, I'll do the interview, but I need to calm myself down first. And you just sat down on the front row of the stand and let you simmer down for about 5 minutes. That was a bit scary. But now, you know.
I mean, we'll talk about that later on in this. But that was about a month before when I was still at Mosley. We got beat 7-1 on Boxing Day at Ramsbottom. And genuinely, that Hyde one was worse. Felt worse for me, that. So if you want to discuss that, bring it up later. Let's just ease me in.
look at these two. I'm sat here with a crib sheet of stuff where we're going to start, where we're going to go. These two are just jumping in where all the big stories at the start. So I guess we should start with the news segment. And surprise, surprise, there's not been a lot of news. But just as we were coming on air, some breaking news, which by the time this goes out on Sunday won't be quite as breaking as it is currently. The National League North and South have been null and voided. There'll be no relegation. There'll be no promotion. Meaning, if I was a betting man, and I'm not, if the FA is listening, then I would say there's a good chance now that Matlock's league, the Northern Premier League, the pitching in Northern Premier League, got a piece of sponsors, will be null and voided as well. How do you both feel about that?
I've accepted that about 6 months ago. This season was never going to finish. Just never going to finish. Shouldn't have even started it. I'm glad they did because obviously it's been quite positive in terms of what's happened at Matlock in terms of on the pitch. And obviously we had a good cut run and stuff, so we earned a few pound for the club, which at the moment is sort of vital, really, isn't it? But they never should have started it in the first place. Or they should have at least had a contingency for this happening because it was always going to happen. So I'm past it, to be honest, for this season. I accepted it a long time ago.
Is it a case of, because I know you're somebody, I don't think I've ever met somebody who lives and breathes football in quite the way you do. I've known you literally like I thought I had odd sleep patterns and things like that, but there's been times where I've woke up and I've got a message from Wildy at like 7 a.m. and it'll just be something out of the blue. It'll be like, oh, can you see how many times Adam Yates won a header against X team? Can you do that? And it's like
you look closely at the text. You read it at 7. I sent that at 4.
There you go. But it must be difficult because I know you've got a job outside of football. It must be difficult to adapt to just general day-to-day stuff. Because I know when I wake up on a Saturday and there's no football, it does feel a bit like a gut kick.
Yeah, I'm struggling at the minute, but there's no point crying about it. I'm afraid sulking about it or moping around about it because there's thousands of people in my position all up and down the country. So I'm quite lucky in the sense I've got a good network in football, so I still speak to a lot of managers, players, people like yourself. I speak to Philo pretty much every day. I speak to Philo. So still constantly at it. It's just quite difficult at the minute because there's no end game to it. I think the best way to describe it is sort of, I'm on the 220th date now with the bird and still not gone back to her house. That's the way to describe it. It's not that's the way to describe it. Sort of like just a bit. I wouldn't even mind if we could go training and get to second base. Do you know what I mean? We can't.
It's that community aspects, I think, and the camaraderie that yourself, Philo, and all the lads have as well. I think it's difficult when you spend, and I know I've found this as well, when you spend your time round a group of people and then that group of people not be there, it's difficult to adapt.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible, especially the sort of group that we've sort of built and put together, because every single one's a massive character. Every single one plays a big part on and off the pitch. And it's like losing the other half of your family, really, I suppose. That's the best way for me to look at it, is I see Philo and the likes of, I don't know, pick a player, any player, Ryan Qualter. I see them probably just as much, if not more, than I see my girlfriend week to week. So, it's been a big impact on people's lives, but it is what it is. Hopefully, everyone's friend Boris has got an announcement coming. Well, it'll be out on Sunday, won't it? So hopefully the announcement will happen. But at some point, we've got to get past being petrified of these figures or numbers or whatever you want to call them, having we've got to attempt to go back to normal. Otherwise, this will go on forever.
Well, we're not here to discuss COVID. I know we've all got plenty of views on that. It's just a difficult one. I know you've had COVID, Wildy. I know it. I think it hit you pretty hard.
I think it hit the club pretty hard because of me.
Well, I didn't like to come and place blame on your doorstep, but
yeah,
I think it's just one of those things. And like you say, I think the sooner it's safer for us all to get together again, it will be better, but we have to be safe, of course. And
look, it's not nice. It absolutely wiped me off my feet. But, people have just got, I don't know.
You're a football man. You're a football man who wants to do football things, and I respect that.
Yeah, I just miss competition and sort of shouting at people and getting shouted at off Philo and
I
just miss it. I just miss everything about it. I miss coming home stressed because we've lost. As mad as that sounds, like I like that. I like having to plan and prep.
So that was a very short news segment because there's not much else happening right now. So
I wear glasses now.
Wildy wears glasses. I'm telling you, he looks like he's about to give me a lecture on quantum science. I'm very impressed.
I think Graham's actually going to bring out my own range of glasses at the club shop.
Oh, Graham's got his fingers.
Yeah,
he's got his fingers in more pies
than
anyone I've ever met.
No comment actually. Have you seen? Behave yourself.
We're treading the line, folks. We're 10 minutes in and we're treading the line already. So I want to move on. Talk to you, Wildy, a bit. I know me and Matt were discussing this prior to the podcast. We don't think, and you'll be able to confirm this, did you go straight into coaching or did you play before you went into coaching? Because we couldn't remember exactly.
Do you want to know the absolute truth?
I want to know everything.
Well, right, but I used to play footy at school, decent. I was all right. So my mates at school so Ben Halfaker will have something to say about that. But yeah, I was all right. I was never going to be a pro. I started knocking about with people I probably shouldn't have started knocking about with. Come off the rails. And then sort of come back to football when I met Katie when I was about 24-ish, 25. And just I packed in my job and started coaching. And the rest is history. I've always wanted to manage and coach or whatever you want to, whatever it's, currently I'm an assistant, so I'm not bothered what my role is as long as I'm involved in football. So that's sort of been something that's really turned my life around and kept me out of the trouble and going down a path that I was well down it, which is what it is. It'll come out one day, I suppose. Yes, that was me. I didn't play. I started coaching at City in the community, voluntary, and then I think everyone knows about my work ethic in terms of football, and it's because I love it. So I've worked voluntary for about 3-4 months, and then casual, part-time, full-time. Moved around roles, and then I went to Curzon Ashton as an opposition scout first for John Flanagan. My mate Stevie Everall was the keeper coach, and that was sort of when non-league started. And it's quite well. A lot of people know that me and John sort of didn't work out at Mosley, but he's probably been the biggest and most important influence on my career. He was the one who got me going, and I'll forever be grateful to him. And a lot of what I am is because of him. So that was sort of my route into non-league. And then I went to Main Road for a little bit just to sort of cut my teeth in the dugout. Went to Northwich Vicks with Adam Lakeland. I think I did that in hindsight now. I did that way too early, trying to go in the Evo stick at 26, 27. I was too young for that, way too young. And Adam's very experienced and a very good coach. Proofs in the pudding, he's took Farsley up. And I think I was a bit pig-headed at the time and probably was a bit reluctant to learning his way and stuff. And that's, it is what it is. It's my loss, that ultimately. And then I got offered the job at Stockport Town, managed Stockport Town, got the job at Mosley, managed Mosley, and then obviously come to Matlock.
From between that step at Mosley, because the roles between you and Philo were the opposite way round there.
Yeah. He
came in as your assistant, then you came to Matlock as his assistant. What was it that made you want to take that step up to Matlock? Because it's only a division, but I know you seem to be somebody who, when he buys into something, he buys into it, and you're all about Matlock. Like I can't remember a time when we've had a conversation that hasn't included Matlock Town in some way.
Yeah, because you're not my mate, are you? I'm not going to speak to you about other stuff.
Wow. So it's all coming out.
I'm only joking, mate. So Philo left Buxton at the same time that I had a yeah, I don't know, we'll probably speak about it in a bit. I had a horrendous 6 months at Mosley in terms of my management staff. And the first year at Mosley was brilliant. We had a great team, probably should have gone up. I think if I could go back now with that group of players, I genuinely think we'd get over the line and more experienced and less pig-headed and more receptive to support and help. And, I wanted to push the club on because we were so close to it in the playoffs after 10 years of absolute obscurity of Mosley. Obscurity is harsh because it's not fair that on people like Bandy and Lloyd, because they did do a good job with sort of what they had at their disposal. But I just think we took Mosley on a bit, myself, Terry, Phil Carrat, in that first year, and we pushed on. And I wanted to go a different direction in the second year, and I shouldn't have done it. I just shouldn't have done it. I effed the whole thing up, and I'm happy to admit that. But Philo had gone through pretty much an identical situation to me at Buxton. He'd obviously, Philo's a great manager. Philo's proofs in the pudding. Again, I've said that 3-4 times already, but how many clubs has he took to playoffs or, teeted on the edge of playoffs and getting clubs up? He's not a muppet, is he, at this level? So I think that we sort of, we clicked very quickly when we met. I met him for a brew when I asked him to come in at Mosley because John Flanagan had left and obviously needed some support because we were having a bit of a wobbly patch and I needed some experience and a bit of a different approach, and it worked so well, so well. He came in and we hit the ground running. I'm not saying I didn't play my part, but Philo played a huge part in it, and we fixed it. We got things right. We got a really good squad back together, and then obviously he got the opportunity to come to Matlock. Asked me to come. I'm not turning that down. So I think, in all honesty, I think I took Mosley as far as I could at that point because I'd lost. Do you know the ins and outs of Mosley with Phil Carrat, the assistant?
Break it down for us. Break it down for the listeners.
Phil was my best friend. I love him. That's never going to change. And he massively advised me not to bring John Flanagan in. I wanted to bring him in. I was pig-headed. I wanted it to happen. I didn't want Phil to leave. I wanted it to be sort of 2 assistant managers, a bit like when it was myself and Brian with Philo. Phil didn't agree with it, and rightly for him, he resigned. And looking back, I probably should have done a hell of a lot more to keep him. But in my defence, not that I'm not apologising to anyone because I don't need to, but my vision was, look, John Flanagan had got out of that division, got out the division above, been incredibly successful in the Conference North. Why wouldn't I want to learn off my own mentor? And it just didn't work. And it is what it happens. It is what it is. But it affected me in a very, very big way losing Phil because my best friend, you speak to him 10, 15 times a day about everything. He was like sort of the only person in football that I'd speak to, not about football. And I've lost that now. So, I spoke to him a couple of days, texted him yesterday, but what will be with that. And then obviously Philo would have had quite a similar situation at Buxton. And I think we both tried to push our clubs at the time, Buxton and Mosley, in a different direction. It didn't work. We recruited wrong. And that's no offence to the players that come in at Mosley because everyone put it in for me. It just didn't work. And then obviously we got together, it clicked. And then the Matlock thing come up. So sort of, I'm 33 now. I was 32 when I come to just 32 when I come to Matlock. I'm not pig-headed enough anymore to look at my time at Mosley and think to myself that probably hit that jump earlier than anyone I know, apart from maybe Callum McIntyre at Runcorn, but he'd done the rounds at sort of Chester's youth level and he's got extremely good contacts. And yeah, I've got thousands of contacts and I've got loads. I'm very good at recruitment and I know what I'm doing. I can be a good manager, will be a good manager, and I'm good at certain things, but I wasn't ready for really taking a club, not on the pitch, but off the pitch, forward. So the opportunity to learn from Philo, who's been there and done it at a club, Matlock's a big club at MPL level. Everyone knows about him, and I see it as very similar to Mosley in the fact that it's a community club. It's sort of a little village club, and we did a tremendous job at Mosley. So let's go and do it again at Matlock. And I think that I've already in 6 months or 12 months, and we've barely played, but I've learned so much about me, my style, what I can do, working with Philo, that's going to make me a much more rounded football person. So I'm still to this day extremely glad that I made the decision, because I think that if I'd have tried to get a manager's job at this level, let's just say for argument's sake, I applied for the Matlock job and I got it, and I wouldn't have been ready. I just wouldn't have been ready for it. And I think now I'm nurturing myself to be the best assistant manager in the league. That's my aim now whilst I'm under Philo. So I've learned loads about the level. I've learned loads about teams at the level, different, players are much better, fitter, stronger, more experienced, and so that was the whole point about me going from a number 1 to a number 2. I got absolutely caned off people saying that I bottled it and all this nonsense, and I got told once that people were saying I was a water boy at Matlock, so I made sure that we started putting glucose in the water, so I was the best water boy in the league. And that was sort of, that period of my life was a bit chaotic, but I'm so glad I made the decision to come.
I think like we're a lot of things.
I've just completely gone around the houses there, sort of.
No, mate. I think it's interesting to sit and hear your thoughts. I know getting to know you, somebody who is very upfront and honest about football and about life in general. And I think part of coaching from an outsider's perspective, a lot of that is learning from your mistakes and learning where things have gone wrong. So I think it's a case now, looking forward, that we need to sort of learn and go from there. But I wanted to speak very briefly. I was going to ask Spillo this. We'll probably speak to Spillo in a few weeks' time. Look, I think a lot of managers, assistant managers, coaches will look at Matlock and will say, right, is there something wrong there? Because there's been a lot of managerial changes at Matlock in a short time. A lot of, in fairness to the club, it's not a lack of trying. There's been a lot of managers that have come in, have been varying experience, varying knowledge, varying player pools. Did you and Philo look at Matlock as a project, look at something that you could get your teeth into? And was there any sort of feeling of, sort of dread at the challenge ahead, or was it something you were excited about?
Dread any challenge ever. It was right for at the time. I think the big thing was fair play to Philo, because ultimately the job before was Buxton, and that's ballsy, that, for me. I think to go from a direct sort of relegation rival from that season, because ultimately, he'll be the first to admit that he had a bad season, and they were down there, weren't they, when we first came in? And I think that was really ballsy of him, and he deserves the pat on the back for saying no, we'll go for it. I'm not scared of any challenge. Like anyone who knows me, I'm not gonna shirk.
So Wildy, my first sort of big impression of you when you came over to Matlock was I think the penultimate game before everything stopped for the first national lockdown, which of course was in the previous season, and you lost to Hyde United 3-1. And to put it politely, Matlock did well to only lose 3-1. It was a really bad performance, and
don't underdo it. It was a disgrace.
And but what I noticed as well, because that was the first time I'd ever interviewed you, was you actually went over to fans in person. When that was used to be a thing, when fans could go to football stadiums, and you actually went over and apologised to all the people that had paid to go and watch their team, and obviously do it away from home as well. Just at that point, were you a bit worried about how Matlock were doing, and just how was that game sort of like an indicator as to how big a job that you and Philo had on your hands?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the top and bottom of it was too many of the players didn't care remotely bothered about Matlock as a club. They weren't remotely bothered about me and Philo and me as people. They were running the season down. I think that's an honest assessment in terms of the playing squad. That's not me. I'm not saying every single one of them, but a big chunk of them were. They hadn't bought into what Matlock is, what Matlock's about, and Matlock's a community club and a family club, and it should and hopefully is now becoming again a very close knit community club, which leads on to the the reason why I did go and apologise to fans, and I did want to take the time to speak to them, because that's not what Philo and myself are about, or any of the staff or the club. We're not. Listen, if I don't listen, losing's part of the game, right? And I will lose, or we will lose, and Philo will lose, and I'll lose, whatever, thousands of games between now and the end of life, because that's the game. That's what it is. Nobody wins every game. If somebody could win every game, then I'd be at Man City, wouldn't we? So my point is that losing's fine, right? It's how you lose, and that day was horrifically bad. There was no excuses. There was no sort of me or Philo or anyone hiding behind, well, this isn't our squad. You know, we took big responsibility for what happened that day, and that's why I want to go around and speak to the fans, because we want Matlock to be representation of what we're about. And, you know, you've said it yourselves about sort of myself and Philo is workhorses, and the rest of the staff. I keep saying that like it's just me and Philo. It's not. Philo's at the head of it, and we all graft for him because he's that sort of man. So we're hard working, down to earth, sort of working class people. We're not silver spoon characters. We're all grafters, and that was not a representation of what any of us expect that day. Which is why obviously I took it upon myself that day to go and speak to the fans, because I truly believe if they'd have gone home without listening to me or me taking the time out for them, I don't think we would be getting the crowds that we're getting this year, and I don't think that the connection between playing and management staff and fans will be anywhere near as strong as it has been this season. And it's all down to, at the end of the day, it's their club. I'm just a small part in it. Philo's just a small part in it, and the players are a small part in it. It's their club. We want them to be happy, win, lose or draw. They have to be able to say, go home when they're having a brew or they're having the tea with the wives, whatever it is, their husbands or the kids or whatever, and have to be able to say, first things first is 100% was put into that match. And that's why I needed to do what I did that day, because that's something that I will live by no matter where I end up or any aspect of my life. Is if you're doing it, do it, and do it at your best of ability. Don't come half-hearted. Don't come to pick a wage up. Don't, because this is a luxury. There's thousands of people who want that opportunity to play for a club like Matlock. So I'd rather have somebody from the Northwest Counties over somebody who's played in the Premier League, who's just there to prance around the pitch. I'm not saying that anybody was that day, by the way, but to prance around the pitch and pick up a wage on a Friday night. It's not going to happen. Don't work like that. You know what? Listen, I'll do it for free. Money don't come into it for me, and I have done it for free when I first came. It doesn't matter. It means nothing to me. I'm quite happy to phone Bryn and say, don't worry about paying me. I'm not interested, because I do it because I love football. I love community clubs. I love seeing smiles on fans' faces. And there is no better reward than going into a clubhouse after a game and a random person who you've probably spoke to once in your life coming up to you and telling them how much they appreciate what you've done for their week with that football club. And that's why I needed to do that on that day.
And just obviously because, well, nothing's been confirmed yet. They're kind of waiting for whatever the next announcement will be from Boris Johnson. But it's probably looking likely that the season is done with, especially with what the National League North and South have announced today as well. But in terms of this season, if there could have been sort of like, if it could have been a normal season and a traditional end to it, how far do you think this team could have got? Do you think that were you really not just hoping, but I'd say expecting the team could finish in the top 5 and get a playoff place.
Yeah, 100%. I don't listen. When everyone's on no points and the referee blows that first whistle at Bamber Bridge, we were setting out to win the league. We'll be doing the same next season, the same the season after, whether we're in the Conference North, NPL, whether we got relegated and we were given an opportunity to fix it. 0 points, no games played. We want to win the league. And anybody who says that they don't want to do it, let's consolidate. And we're like, no. That's not what we do it for. We're competitive people. We want to win. Spend all day, every day, from 3 a.m. till midnight when I go back to bed and do 3 hours sleep, 4 hours sleep. We want to win. And that's that. So anybody who tells you that, oh, we finished 14th, so it was a good season. Come on, mate. So that's it. That was the mentality. Where do I believe we could have finished? Honest to God, we could have won that league if that had carried on. Look, we'd only played 6 games. We were going to have a bump in the road. Who knows? But that group of players that are still there now, that are working away in the background and keeping themselves fit, I believe in every, and Phil's the same. Obviously, it's me talking. I believe in every solitary one of them, from number 1 to 19, that they're good enough to win a league, get in a playoff, win a playoff. And every single one of them's got my faith, from, Big John Stewart at the start of the season into Sean, from people like Nathan Whitehead and Craig King, who didn't even have a pre-season, Craig Carney coming in late, who, no one's had the opportunity to see, right up to, Liam Hughes and Alex Byrne, those sort of characters. As wholehearted, 100% faith in every single one of them. So I truly believe we could have done it.
I think what we've seen as well, what I've noticed, I've worked with a lot of managers on the media side, a lot of management teams. And what I've noticed in particular with the current set of lads, and even the non-play staff, is that everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, which I think it's such a valuable asset to have. And I know when you speak to the lads after the game in the bar, it's you get that general buzz from them that they're enjoying themselves. They want to be here, as opposed to, like you say, just picking up a paycheck. But
our mentality is, if you don't want to be here, get off. I've said that to you before, haven't I? I said it last season.
Very much so.
Leave. I'm not bothered.
But I wanted to slightly move into our next topic now, because, as anybody knows, Dave's quite a character. He's an enthusiastic. But I call him Matlock's Mad Hatter, for lack of a better term, because you never quite know what he's going to do or what's going to come out of his mouth. So I'm going to start with a bit of a heartwarming story, and then I'll move on to a few other stories, which we may have to check with the club where we can release them. But I want to start. Matlock obviously played Tamworth away in pre-season. For those of you who don't know, I am a bigger lad, no hair. I wasn't blessed with beauty. So I got some stick from Tamworth fans, which, it comes with the territory.
James, stop putting yourself down.
I appreciate that, as you know I do. But, so obviously, I was getting quite a tongue lashing, and...
You were. You were, I'll be honest.
While the, we're studying... I think I spoke to you during the game. I know I'd spoke to Pillar. And it's that loyalty, definitely two-way thing. I remember it's one of those things that has stuck with me. And you turned around and you stood up for me. And, it wasn't like you did that off your own back. And I think that says a lot, like I've said about that whole everyone's one team, everyone's part of that mentality. So I don't know if I've put across how thankful I was for that.
Thank me for that. We're in it together.
But I think
tomorrow I'd do the same thing.
I think it says a lot about the type of character you are. And I think, above all, you're a good-hearted bloke. But you're also a bloke who has A wicked sense of humour, and I want to bring up another instance. Now, I can't remember what game it was. I believe it was an away game, and you had very kindly.
This could be anything.
I've not told you any of these. You're sat there quaking your boots right now. I love it. You quite kindly offered to go and pick Matt up because Matt travels usually on trades, and I know he spoke to you about it, and Matt can confirm this, and said, is there any chance, I want to come cover the game? I wasn't there, so I believe it was yourself, Callum Dolan, and Matt in this car. So I get a text off Matt, I go, oh yeah, Wilder's here now, we're on our way to the game, I'll cover it. Between you, do you want to explain what happened next?
Matt, what game was it?
It was because I was just trying to think. I think was it a cup match
on the 4G?
Was it Coleshill?
No,
I think it.
what were they called?
I think they were called Coleshill.
Oh, it was Colville.
No, it wasn't.
No,
I think I thought it were. I thought it was.
It was Colville.
Colville.
Who did we play in the FA Cup on the 4G?
Trying to think. Was it Quorn?
Disrespectful what I'm doing here. Sorry.
Colville don't play. Colville don't play on 4G. It was definitely Coleshill who we played the FA Trophy.
Trophy. Who did we play in the FA Cup on a Tuesday night in the middle of nowhere?
Corn.
Who?
Corn.
What are they called?
Corn.
Quorn.
Yeah.
Was it Quorn?
No, it was definitely after that. I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the Colville game. So the game where you won on penalties. You went 2-0 down, I think, quite early on, and you ended up winning on penalties after a 3-3 draw.
I was so angry with Alex Byrne that night.
Yeah, it was that one. So basically, I went outside because you told me you were ready, and then you were sort of walking down the middle of the road where I live in Sheffield, looking quite panic stricken. And then, because I thought, your car's, it's run out of petrol or something like that. And then, you've managed to lose your key inside a tiny gap in your car.
Yeah, so
and I basically got you and Callum Dolan trying to get the searchlights out.
Tweezers.
You've still got my fiance's tweezers.
Oh, no, my keys. I stood on my keys at the gym, and the keys snapped out of the. I don't know what's it called. I'm not.
Hold still.
What's it called? Like the thing that sets it off. The key, I suppose.
Yeah.
Out, so I have to have the metal part of the key goes in, and then I have to attach the key to turn the key on. And the metal thing come out, and we were outside Matt's house for.
Quite a while.
During this time, I get a text off of Matt. First of all, it's like, yeah, we're ready to go. And I'm like, okay, I've got Matt covering this. I'll cover from base camp. We've got everything. We're well sorted. 10 minutes later, get a text off Matt. I don't mean to panic you, but we can't go because Wildy's lost his key. I'm like, lost his key? How? And he goes, yeah, he's dropped it in a tiny gap in the car. And then he sends me this picture, and it's just you and Callum Dolan peering into this, like the tiniest gap you've ever seen in your car.
Remember, I was trying to get that guy in the van in front. I was like, look, mate, I really need your help. And he was absolutely stoned out of his marbles. Looked at me like, what?
Well, I thought you knew him because you were both talking to him. So I was like, so in the back of my mind, I was kind of like, why has he got another guy going with him, sort of like in convoy? But I'm like, well, I'll not say anything. And then he sort of walked off anyway. And then, yeah.
So I didn't know what was going on.
So eventually you did get there. Eventually the key was retrieved. But it's not the only funny story we have involving Dave. Dave is one of the few people I have known who you will walk over to him and he will come out with some of the most random comments you've ever seen. So, case in point, Grantham Town. I believe we beat them in the FA Cup. We were all buzzing. Dave, as you know, and a lot of lads as they do after the game, tidying up the dugout that they've been respectful, which I think something, you know, the tidying of the dugout does go unnoticed, but it's something that the club does a lot. Tidying the changing rooms. So I'm buzzing. I've just seen beside 1-0. Callum Dolan's come off the bench. He scored. He's buzzing. Me and Matt are there. We don't know where Gaffer's gone. He disappeared at bar, funnily enough. So we're sat there, we're talking to Dave, and the first words that come out of Dave's mouth upon seeing me is, James, how fast do you think I can run around this running track? Do you want to time me? Not, I'm buzzing about the win. How fast do you think I can run? Now, what goes through your mind?
Do you know what it is with me? Do you know what it is with me for them sort of situation like that? Is a bizarre comment, isn't it, looking back? But I spend that much time and intense time all week planning, thinking, prepping, travelling, sorting players out, liaising with Philo, speaking to yourself, whatever it may be, that once a game's done, I have 10 minutes? I have probably about 10 minutes where that's done. And it just comes out. Whatever I'm thinking will come out within that 10 minutes, and then boom, on to the next game. So that's my little time. So that's.
Well, I remember saying to you, I'll race you over 100 meters if you want, and immediately you went, yeah, all right, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, you bottled it.
I did bottle it. You won by default, I think. Yeah, you won by default. And then you ended up tidying up the Matlock, the away dugout at Grantham's ground.
Got to do that.
Very nice.
Everywhere we go, you've got to do that.
During this time, I said, I haven't run in 10 years and I'm not starting now. I'm not built for speed, built for durability, but not for speed.
You doing it again, James?
Oh, mate, I'm quite happy with how I am on that regard. But it's not the only. You are somebody I've had messages off at 7:00 in the morning, and I think, oh, Wildy's messaged me. It's just something off. It does need something. And I believe you just called me one time. It was just like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, it was like 8:00 in the morning. You were just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just getting out of bed. What are you doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, Wildy. What I'll do is to make up for me bottling it last time. When Matlock play at Grantham again, the very beautiful, picturesque ground that it is.
Don't say it. Don't say you're not going to do it.
We'll do it. We'll have 100-meter race.
Okay.
It's official.
Then if you beat me, we'll just do 400 meters. We'll just keep on going and going.
Actually doing a hell of a lot of running in lockdown, so
I've not.
There you go. It's official. The first Keep Off the Fence podcast, great race.
Matthew
Rhodes versus Dave Wiles.
We'll both race their mascot, the gingerbread man. We'll do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what were you doing at 8 in the morning?
Well, I believe I was just picking whether I wanted Cocoa Pops or Frosties. I hadn't really put much more thought into it. But
5 hours into my day at that point.
Now, you mentioned you've been running a lot during lockdown. I know prior to us going back into lockdown, you'd taken up boxing, I believe. I know you were doing a lot of sparring. You did a lot of sparring with quite a well-known British boxer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate, sir?
Where's this going? What did you say?
I said you've been doing some sparring with a rather well-known British boxer. Don't worry, I'm not going to do a Matt. He's not going to challenge you to race. I'm going to challenge you to a scrap. Don't worry about it.
I'm not fighting him. That's where this is going.
No, but I just want. I know. What game were we at? I think we were at. It was one of the games, and I just remember you coming over to me and going, "Hey James, do you want to see how fast I can punch? I've been sparring, I've got really into my boxing." And this is like just before a game, and I'm like, "Yeah, okay then." you just do this quick 1-2 jab, like we're in some sort of Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, and then it's like something snaps and you're back to normal. You're off setting up codes. I'm like,
here's my look.
okay.
Let me ask you this, yeah. When it happened, did you smile?
Oh, of course.
Sweet, isn't it?
Well, this is it, and this is why I think you and Philo work as a pairing as well as you do, and I think you're very different characters in how you approach things, in how it's not a case of good cop bad cop that you sometimes get with the manager and assistant manager. It's a case of you're happy to have a laugh and a joke as and when it's needed, but I know once that game hits, it's serious stuff.
Yeah,
you'll and Philo's one of those people. He's very sarcastic with his humor. I look forward to talking to him about that, because some of the things he's said in the past as well are always interesting. We're an interesting bunch, but you are just somebody who I think having that big character, and I know it does go over well with the lads, and I think so that it is commendable. But I want to move on now to talk about. We've talked about Matlock Town. We've talked about Dave Wild's story, as well as some of his intricacies, which is
that hadn't even scratched the surface of my story, mate.
Well, let me tell you, if people want it, let us know. We're more than happy to have Dave back on for a part 2. But I want to talk very briefly now about the outside, the general football world. Dave, for those who don't know, massive Manchester City fan.
Before the money, when everyone starts that nonsense.
Here, Manc by name, Manc by nature, correct?
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know, which I presume you do, because you told me you listened to the first podcast, so thank you for that. Matt is a big Aston Villa fan.
Yeah.
Now,
And Chesterfield.
Well, they're not in the Premier League, but yeah.
Yet.
Get
it right.
So, I want to. A hot topic at the minute in football in general has been the whole thing around VAR. We don't have it in non-league, which is a blessing. How do you both feel as fans of Premier League sides about VAR? No swear words, please.
I absolutely hate it. Don't like it.
Honestly,
I'd rather lose 1-0 from a dubious goal, or like draw 1-1, because so you don't lose anymore, do you? But I'd rather draw like 1-1 on a proper dubious, like he was offside there, and be able to have something to talk about at work, than be at home, obviously, at the minute, or when we can go at the games, if obviously Matlock aren't playing, and just sit in that stadium like that for 10, 15 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes at a time waiting for a VAR. This is took the enjoyment out of it. It hit me clean in the face when Sterling's goal got disallowed against Tottenham in the Champions League. I had my shirt off. I was on one of my best mate's shoulders. I was crying my eyes out. I just genuinely thought we were going to win it that year, because we were unbelievable. And we'd have played Ajax in the semis, and I just think we'd have got to the final. And it snatched off for something that any other year, the line wouldn't have even put a flag up. It wouldn't have even been checked. So I just think it took the romance out of it a bit.
I initially was in favour of it, but it's not being used. But it's not being used in the right way. So like, it's meant to, eradicate clear and obvious errors. So if someone's elbow is technically a few millimeters in front of the defender, I mean, it's just. Technically, yes.
That, mate, he's not, because he can't score with it anyway.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Why were you offside?
But even if it's, someone's foot is like 2 millimeters, I mean, technically, yes, it's offside, but it's meant to eradicate your clear and obvious errors, and that's what it doesn't do.
The big thing for me with these millimeter ones is It's not live. It's on a freeze frame.
Yeah.
So at some point, that foot was onside. So where does
They've
the
already,
start?
yeah, they've already said, I think, is it IFAB, the organisation that kind of runs all that, or whatever it is, and they said like they can't when they pause it, freeze frame it, they can't get it 100% certain as to when like the assist is made or the crosses comes
when
in.
it come off the foot.
So there has to be like a slight margin for error. So it don't make any sense to give like an offside based on like a 2 millimeter decision because you've already got a margin for error. So the way it's implemented is just stupid. And now if like Villa score now, especially if it's like, 0-0 and there's only 10 minutes to go, I don't celebrate that much anymore because I'm now scared that it's going to get chalked off and I don't want to get my hopes up.
Get you in the
and
league.
Obviously that shouldn't be how it is.
Get you up though, doesn't it?
You what?
Get you up though, doesn't it?
Well, that was goal line technology. The one time it didn't work.
It makes me laugh so much when, like, obviously not you. You're not like that. But like, I've seen. Did something happen when City played Villa?
Yeah, so it was
the Rodri goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which wasn't offside, but he loads of Villa fans on Twitter hammering City saying, "Oh, it's a joke. VAR are winning. You wouldn't even be in the league without it."
And Villa also beat Southampton despite about 3 things that Southampton didn't do wrong and they got penalised for it.
I just feel like go to work now. Like one of my mates at work's a big, massive Liverpool fan, and the other one's like got United fans at work and blah blah blah. And every week now, you're not talking about the footy, you're talking about VAR again. That's all you ever see on Sky Sports News. It's just took it. Non-league's miles better anyway, isn't it?
Do you think it's got more genuinely? Do you think, well, when fans can properly get back again to stadiums, do you think more people will actually start going into non-league and non-league will become more popular because people are getting a bit disillusioned with the Premier League?
I think so, yeah. I don't think that grounds will be full when they're allowed to be. I think they will be for the first weekend of it. I just don't think people will be going to the extent anymore because the country and people are on the backside as it is anyway financially. They're not going to drop prices down, so it's still be 50 quid to go and watch City. Well, I'm not paying that. I can't afford to pay that at the minute. It's it's not a luxury for me at the moment in life. 50 quid to watch Man City versus Crystal Palace at the Etihad. As much as I love City, it's too much money after 6 months of furlough and then in and out of work. Well, I'm not in. Look, I'm touch wood. I'm very lucky that I've got quite a stable job, but I spent a lot of time on furlough. Same with my, your girlfriend and whatnot. Things are tight at the minute, aren't they? So I just don't think that. Unless they do something to help the public, I think a lot of people will come into either lower league football, as in League Two and Chesterfield, for example, and below. I hope so, anyway, because it's good. It's good non-league. It's great.
It is, and I think something I always felt. I was lucky. My dad was always a Matlock fan, so my upbringing was non-league. I never had a league team as such. So, but I look at it, and I had friends who were Liverpool supporters, Man United supporters, and I always feel you go to those clubs, you sort of see it as a bit of a number.
Yeah.
As opposed to at non-league level, you have that sort of, you're going bar after game, management's there, players are there, everyone knows each other. It's that community aspect, which I think you only really get at non-league level.
Yeah, definitely. I remember once being at City and at a home game, Mancini was managing that the year after and it was going a bit belly up. And there was like where the management and the players and stuff leave. I'm not stupid. You're not going to get in a bar, are you, with 30 or 40,000 people? But the car pulled up with Mancini in it, and his window was half down, and a fan shouted something, which was right for my opinion, which is basically like, it's effing this, it's effing that, it's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And he just wound the window up. And I'll never forget that as long as I live, because I used to be so pro Mancini, it was unbelievable. I used to love him. And then the second he did that, I just thought, gone now, this. Gone. Because they're not interested. That's, at the end of the day, that bloke who's giving his opinion pays Mancini's wage at that time. So, and it's the same with non-league. And that's why, obviously, Philo is very, very passionate about no matter what the score, you can get beat 10-0 or you can win 10-0, is every single person goes in the bar for 15 minutes and you're going to engage with people and answer tough questions if they want to ask them, because it's their club and they keep it running. And I think that's the, like you've just said there, that's the beauty of non-league. I've met so many new people in my life, and people that never in a million years would have been mates with it, you know, in terms of my normal circle. I've still got a guy called Colin at Mosley. He still texts me regularly just to see how I am. I still speak to people from Northwich Vicks. You know, I've made friends now at Matlock, and they're not people that you'd ever associate somebody like myself with. They're all like older men or middle-aged men, but because we've got a common, well, saying that I'm a middle-aged man now, because we've got a common interest in that club at that time, well, yeah, you make good friends with them. And I think that's a massive thing for non-league as well. I was speaking to Robin, that's his name, isn't it?
Yeah, Robin.
Guy at Matlock.
Yeah, Robin.
The white, he wears the green pants.
Yes, Robin.
What a man. What a man he is, by the way. And he was saying to me that, like, I think we played Chorley's sort of trialish squad in a friendly.
Yes.
He was there. And I was speaking to him and he was saying, like, and it still bothers me to this day that he was sort of like completely on his own at home. And he's just had a knee operation. Or he just had an operation, and obviously he's come out. He's got to self-isolate. He's in on his own, and then his sort of social aspect of life was Matlock and non-league. It's been took away from him, and I think that for me at Matlock was the biggest eye-opening moment for me of how important Matlock is as a club for the people of Matlock, because, you know, ultimately, is he all right? Anyone spoke to him? You know, I've given him my phone number, and whether he's too proud, he hasn't phoned me, and I wish he had, because I would gladly drive up there and go and have a social distance brew with him, because he's had something so important took away from him. Obviously, it's a COVID situation, blah, 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 but, you know, going into the difference between non-league and the Prem, we're so important as a club for him and his life, and hundreds of people like that at Matlock, and same at Mosley and clubs everywhere. I don't think that's another reason why the fan thing with me, got to appreciate these people and what they do for the club week after week, bad season after bad season, good season. We're so important to the lives that only happens in non-league, because at City they just want your money. Got a bit round the houses there. I've described that, but hopefully that's come across.
It's good.
Well, he's my favourite man at Matlock.
We're going to have to wrap up because the Zoom countdown clock of doom is ticking away, telling us we only have 3 minutes and 50 seconds before it closes or something goes bang. I don't know what happens. But if you do want a part 2 to this, there's a lot of Dave Wild stories that I'm sure untapped. We'd love to have you on again, Dave. Thank you for your time this evening.
Right. I just hope I've come across professional, because I get, like I say, like, I know I'm a canon, and you were saying before about like the way that me and Philo work. You've got to remember at Matlock now, I've got the luxury of not having his pressure, so I can be a little bit more chirpy and a bit more myself. And when obviously he was my number 2 at Mosley, it was reverse. So it's just how it is at the minute. But
Mate,
more than jokes.
If I didn't think that you were going to be a good guest, we would have asked you to be on. And I think
you would. You're scraping the barrel.
Well,
let's get Robin on.
Second episode in, scraping the barrel.
that's my next podcast, so we'll not talk about it. But yes, thank you to everyone who was listening. Thank you to Matt for joining me again. We will be back in a fortnight's time with somebody else. I don't know who. We will have to see. I've not thought that far ahead.
Robin.
Maybe.
Could be.
Get Robin.
Could be. You never know. So all that's left to say is this podcast, if you're listening to it, it's available on Spotify. It is available on Apple Podcasts. It is available on Amazon Music. If you like us, go and give us a lovely...
Look at us.
I know,
mate.
I know. Thanks to Acast for hosting us. Go and give us a 5-star review. Say something nice about us. Say, I don't know, say Dave's very knowledgeable about non-league. He'd like that. We could relay that to him. And thank you again for joining us. We're back in a fortnight's time. See you later, everyone.
Lads, just on a final thing as well, like, I think it's brilliant what you're doing. And you two don't get anywhere near as much credit as you probably should. James as well, like, you get caned on social media at times and you take a big brunt, but what you do for the club is like astronomical and probably equally as, if not more important than what people like myself do. So I think sometimes you need to be a bit less harsh on yourself and realise the value that you do add to the club, because you're a huge part of things, mate.
I appreciate that, mate, and I'll slip you that far later.
No, don't see. He made a joke. He made a joke, and it's, what I've said is true.
I know,
mate.
I know, mate.
You do loads for us, and without you, it's not impossible. And the same with you, Matt. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aldi.
Someone checking on Robin for me, because he's not phoned me.
Well, I'll see if I see him around town. I'll tell him you've been asking.
Yeah, please. All right.
Right. Go wrap this up. Less than 1 minute. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.